Thank you. We're all set, Ira.
Well, thank you for the introduction. And first of all, I want to say that I fully support what Phil's doing. I'm a big fan. I encourage everybody to stop putting out harmful chemicals, whether they're young farmers, homeowners, wineries, sod farms, conventional farms. We got to stop poisoning the earth. And here on Long Island, where we have a single source aquifer, everything you put on the ground goes into the aquifer, the bays, the creeks, and the estuary. But I think we all know that. So I guess one of the questions is, what is biodynamics and why is it different than organics? In some ways, it's the same. Basically, biodynamics is a way of fertilizing the earth without the use of any harmful chemicals. It is a holistic, self-sufficient system for the farm, the farmer, and all living beings on the farm. Farming can be done for centuries in the same location because trace elements and minerals, as well as nutrients, are constantly being replenished with the addition of biodynamic preparations and compost with each planting. So KK used to think that organics was primarily about, loving and attention and the care of the farm and material inputs. But biodynamics is a little more in terms of its name even. Bio is life, dynamic is force. So we pay attention to the life force of all beings on the farm. We work with the subtle forces, and they're not so subtle, People say, well, you're talking about things you can't see. And I say, well, yeah, that's right. Well, when the doubters come along, I say, well, how do you feel about gravity? How do you feel about radio waves? These are things you can't see that have enormous force. So life force and the plants and the cosmic energy coming from the sun and the galaxy through the planets does have an effect on us. So we work with these subtle forces. We observe on the farm. We try to work with nature, not against her. We try to attract positive cosmic forces. Most of the microbes and insects are beneficial, and therefore we do not want to kill them. Correct me if I'm wrong, Phil, but there's some things you can put out in organics and still be certified, like copper solutions. They do kill the pests, but they also kill some of the microbes. And really, we depend on the microbes. Microbes break down organic matter into a form that the plants can take up the nutrients. Biodynamics was started by Rudolf Steiner in 1922 to 24 in response to problems in Germany that farmers were having after World War I. His book, Agriculture, outlines in 8 lectures how to do this. Pfeiffer brought biodynamics to America. He was one of Steiner's disciples. Maria Thun, her husband and a son, furthered Steiner's work in Europe. And they published a planting calendar. Here's one of them, Maria Thun's calendar. There's also Stella Natura, another calendar, very useful. These help us organize our work day. Certain days are better to work with root crops, other days with leaf crops, flowers, fruits. If you work on the right day, you get the maximum vitality out of the plant, and that translates into the maximum nutrition and therefore the best taste. So if all farmers or gardeners just follow the calendar, they would improve their practice. It doesn't mean that this is the only time you could work with these crops. It's certainly not, but it's a suggestion to get the maximum vitality. But one of the most important things about the calendar is that there are certain blackout times. There are times when the cosmic forces are not optimum. There might be an eclipse, there might be a trine, there might be some other constellation configuration. And the Thun family had documented this. Over 40 years, they planted radishes almost every hour of every day, and to verify which days were optimum. And if you ever get a bunch of gnarly radishes or misformed plants, they might be planted on a blackout time. Also, on a blackout time, you get low germination. Who wants that? You go through all this work preparing beds or fields, and if you get low germination, that's not a good thing. And if you harvest on a blackout time, the harvest won't store as long. So it's just practical sense to try to follow the calendar. One of the other, oh, by the way, biodynamics was originally intended to remediate the soil. After World War I, all those munitions companies convinced the farmers to put out petrochemical fertilizer, herbicide, pesticide, and within 5 years, it decreased the agricultural produce in Germany, and the cattle were getting sick. So the farmers came to Steiner and asked him, how can we remediate this? And he came up with biodynamics. One of the main components is the calendar, as I mentioned. Another is the biodynamic preparation and amendments. They're made from natural components, animal and plant, very homeopathic, small amounts. For instance, we do a horn manure. You take cow poop, put it in a cow horn, bury it for 6 months. And when it comes out, it's not poop anymore. It's been totally transformed into a humus-like material. 3 tablespoons of that in 3 gallons of water can treat an acre. Well, people say, you got to be kidding, that's crazy. But, if you're scientific, I say, what's a catalyst? The catalyst is something that's there at the beginning of a process and still there at the end of the process. But it enables the process to happen. So it's kind of like that. And in making compost, we use biodynamic preps, chamomile, oak bark, stinging nettle, valerian, dandelion. And all this does basically, they all have specific attributes. It's a little complicated about what elements they emphasize, but it's basically making a great environment for the microbes. And as I said before, the microbes do all the work. They transform organic matter. They break it down into a form that the plants can take up the maximum nutrients and trace minerals. So a third component is soil health. Biodynamic practices work to increase soil health, balance, and fertility. The work increases humus, soil structure, and microbial life in the soil. Basically, my job is to make a good environment for the microbes, and they do the work. The fourth major component of biodynamics is compost. Making compost is extremely important. I happen to do all the raised beds, but you do not have to do raised beds. In fact, in India and Australia, there's thousands of acres being under biodynamic growth, and they're not in raised beds. These are large farms. A lot of that in India is basically undoing the harm that Monsanto has done with their programs. Every time I make a new raised bed, I add 3 or 4 inches of compost, depending on what the plant is. Some beds I don't add any, peas, legumes that are naturally going to put nitrogen back in the soil. You don't need as much compost. The plants have a symbiotic relationship at the roots with the bacteria, and they're taking nitrogen from the air and putting it into the soil. At KK's Farm, we do all other good farming practices, including companion planting, crop rotation, no-till farming, raised beds. We do a lot of natural farming. We do ashing. We do conservation of water. As I say, this is the best water indicator you can have. We don't have a timer for watering. You stick your finger in the soil, 1 digit, 1 inch. If the tip of your finger is damp, you do not need to water. Many beginning gardeners, they water too much and they get yellow leaves and detrimental to the plants. We mulch a lot, and we are in the process of creating a lot of humus in the beds. And we have a lot of earthworm activity, and we actually do dowsing to help confirm some questions we might have. So that's kind of the shortest description of biodynamics. It's a little bit complicated, but I don't know why everybody doesn't get involved. It's very inexpensive to do. That you can make the preparations yourself. If you don't want to make them, you can purchase them from Josephine Porter Institute or other organizations. It's a way of maintaining fertility for hundreds of years on the same land. And you can also remediate any problems you might have on that land. So I'll be happy to take questions. Some of us in the biodynamic world think that the CSA should actually be ASC, which is Agricultural Supported Community. Slightly different look on it. Our CSA is different. We don't take any money up front, and we send out an email every week of what's available. People send back if they want something. That's the way they're getting what they want, not what I want to get rid of. We get happy customers that way. So I'll look forward to the questions at the end. Thank you very much.